You never get the email from HR and think, oh, goody.
I agree with you. It's simple, good, honest banter, such as, since you're down there, love. The corner shop near me has just gone cashless and it's completely thrown my dad. Do I complain or accept it's the direction of travel?
Has your father considered theft? Very rarely go wrong with the York part.
And then it also had brilliant branding, not for girls.
Exactly. Nobody stuck to it. Nobody stuck to it. As it turns out, half the people that were buying it were trans.
Hello and welcome to Francis Foster Sorts Your Life Out, the show where I indeed sort your life out. Now bear in mind, not a physiotherapist, psychotherapist, any type of therapist, which means the advice you're going to get on this show is legit. Put it in your life. It's going to change everything and make everything better. And with no further ado, I'm going to introduce my guest, Benedict Spence. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Well, it's an absolute pleasure. How have you been, mate?
All right. I've commuted up here from deepest, darkest countryside, and I'm overwhelmed by the bright lights. I'm finding it very triggering, very anxiety-inducing, and I might have to be carted off somewhere soon for some state-mandated therapy. But, you know, hopefully you can sort me out with that.
No, I'm not going to sort you out of anything, mate. You're here to sort people out. You do.
I thought this was quid pro quo. I thought you were going to do something for me. I thought that's what this was for. I've got a cup of coffee. That's going to pick me up. Then this is going to bring me down when I get too far up. And in return for that, I will help people. But until this chemical balance has been struck, it's open season. Who knows what's going to happen?
That is true. I mean, do you know what? This is. Would you identify as conservative?
Oh, I think other people would absolutely identify me as conservative. I think I'm somewhere on the right. It depends really what people think. Depends what people think a conservative is. I mean, for a start, you need something to conserve, and I'm not sure there's a lot of that left anymore. So no, not in the sort of the old-fashioned sense. I'd say that I'm on the right, but conservative is perhaps a bit misleading. I'm certainly not a Conservative Party voter, put it that way.
No. Well, you've turned up, and you look. I'll be honest with you. You look like you're going to sell me a used Volkswagen.
I've already sold it to you. This is a done deal.
Done deal. Actually, like, used Volkswagen. That's a good car to be sold, isn't it? Really?
It's not the worst one. Yeah.
No, it's
absolutely.
not. It's not the worst one, indeed. So you're on the right. So you're a reform boy. Also,
no.
Interesting. Why not?
I've not yet seen enough proof that it's a serious party. And they would say, and there's some justification in this, look, it's early days, we've only got however many MPs that we've got, we're putting in place networks that we don't have, and a lot of the support for reform has simply fallen into its lap because it's not one of the two major parties. Okay, fine, fair enough. That doesn't mean you have to nail your colours to the mast beforehand, say, yes, this is absolutely who I'm going to support. I think it's important to subject the upcoming populist parties to as much scrutiny, if not more so, because the public have been so badly let down by the established political parties that I think it would be very foolish to then just go, well, we'll put the same blind faith in you that we did to these other two parties for so long, and if it all goes a bit wrong, what are you going to do? You're my team now. I don't think that that's a smart thing. So I think it's a welcome development in British politics to have potentially shattered the duopoly. That doesn't mean that I'm going to sit here and say vote reform or that I would vote reform.
So do you think you're part of the woke mob? I'm teasing.
I could be.
Yeah.
For the right amount of money, I could be. What are you offering? How woke do you want me to be?
Yeah. I want you to see human beings as genderless blobs.
I can do that.
Yeah. Fantastic.
14 quid and that's yours. There we go. Nice.
Perfect. I think it's actually a really, really good point because I think there's a lot of people now jumping on the Farage bandwagon. A lot of people jump on the Trump bandwagon and they say like, oh, they're perfect. You know what I mean? They're doing no wrong. This is the resistance. I'm like, let's see how it works out.
I mean, this week we've obviously had the slight debacle of the new MP, Sarah Pochin, is it? Who stood up in the House of Commons during Prime Minister's questions and started asking about banning the burqa, which obviously then other members of the party have distance themselves from because it's not official policy. It's not something that's been raised by Farage or Richard Tice or anybody like that before. And it's a curious situation because you've got reform that has had now two MPs that have broken ranks, gone rogue a little bit, and started saying things that the party itself has gone, well, we're not too sure about this. But that's the populist party saying that. that this is a bit too much. We've not thought about this. But I suspect an awful lot of Reform voters are completely in sync with what those two MPs actually said, or a lot of what they say. So you've got a strange situation now where the insurgent party might end up being dragged along in the slipstream because its own voters want new things. They want dynamism. They want to see action being taken. But a lack of discipline and a lack of structure and a lack of, I suppose, policies in Reform, because it just has to sit there and not be the two main parties, means that it can be pulled in any which way direction. And the MPs within the party can say, well, look, discipline be damned. Look how well we're polling. We don't need necessarily to listen to what Nigel says. We can mouth off about these things because we know they're personally popular. And that's a difficult thing that that Farage has found himself with, is that even though the party is very small, clearly discipline is a problem, and it shouldn't be.
No, it's a great point, actually, because the reality is you do see that with Reform. The fact, Jeff Norcott had a great joke about it, which was, how can you have a civil war with 5 MPs?
It's a good question, but we are going to see this play out. I suspect that this is not the last. I mean, I say suspect. It's almost certainly not going to be the last incident where you've got some friendly fire within the Reform Party. And there is also, I know that a lot of people say the Tories are done. As things currently stand, they are, with Kemi Badenoch being the leader. But right now, you'd probably say after Farage, the most sort of impactful politician on the right in this country is Robert Jenrick. A lot of people don't trust Robert Jenrick. They see him as a Cameroon who has very fortunately found had his Damascene conversion right when everything goes to the right. Fair enough. But were he to become leader of the Conservative Party, I do think it would open up many more questions as to the long-term viability of Reform, because he's a very good messenger. And the Tory party, regardless of how much people hate it, justifiably, it remains an edifice within British politics that there is a huge amount of vested interest in it surviving and succeeding. All of the sort of the funding and the networks that people are saying, oh, they've collapsed, they've crumbled, those will come back very quickly when vested interests see it's a viable party again. At which point you will get people like Rupert Lowe and others going, well, why not? Why not talk about getting back into bed with the Tories? Because they probably have just as much of a chance of becoming the largest opposition party as Reform do if Reform doesn't get on top of its discipline issues.
You know, and we will get to your question. Stop worrying. I hate the Conservative Party.
Don't worry. Most people do.
No, but to the point I loathe them like a socialist loathes the Conservative Party. That's the depths of my rage for them.
The thing is, a lot of Tory MPs feel the same way. And a lot of Tory members feel the same way about their own MPs. There's a lot of hatred going on in that party. That doesn't mean that it's going to die, though. This is the thing. It doesn't mean that it's just going to disappear. It requires something approaching a competent leader, because for the same reason that Reform are currently doing so well, they're doing well in the absence of competency elsewhere. That's Labour and the Tories. But nobody is actually looking, if we're serious, nobody's looking at Reform and going, this is a brilliantly run party. It's doing a lot better than people thought, and so it's gaining a lot of momentum. But it's very fragile right now.
Oh, yeah. I think the problem is with Reform is this is what happens when you get contrarians in a party. Because essentially Reform is a party of contrarians.
Yeah.
And then can you actually get contrarians to work together?
For a time.
Yeah.
For a period. Tell you what, if you gave them sort of 6 months and you said you've got to get X, Y, Z things done within 6 months, maybe you'd see some progress. But when you say it's 4 years to the next election, have fun with it, you've not got to hope in hell that they're actually going to stay on the same page. And I would say something else. If we had a competent media in this country, which, that is very debatable, they would recognise in the aftermath of Rupert Lowe and Sarah Pochin saying what they've said, there are so many things that nobody has bothered to ask Reform about. So many different policy areas. Why not just go on a fishing expedition? Start asking random councillors, random MPs, what are your thoughts on this or that? And see what wacky answers you get, and see how that ends up tearing up the party. For as long as they don't have united lines on lots of things, there is so much fun to be had. But we don't actually have that intelligent media ecosystem, so they won't do that. They'll just sort of continue down their current vein, which is what is allowing Reform to gain so much momentum.
Anyway, we look forward to our future overlord, Nigel Farage.
It's going to be fun.
Anyway, with no further ado, we are going to get to your questions. Jackie, get the first one up, please. Dear Francis, A mate from school has started posting on LinkedIn like it's a TED talk. Every post ends with, and that's leadership. He sells printer ink. Do I mute him or start commenting brave?
The first thing you do is you get off LinkedIn. I think of all the social, this is something we talk about a lot in the discourse. Social media, it's toxic. I think LinkedIn is the most toxic of all of them. I think it has turned people into sort of barely sentient automatons. And, you know, you kind of go on and you have a bit of a laugh because you think, oh, this is amusing. It's a bit ironic. Then you realize it's not ironic. It's deadly serious. People genuinely think these things. They genuinely talk this way. And you think, wow, okay, this is horrifying. This is a world of Keir Starmers, people who don't dream and have no favorite books. Everything is about leadership processes and business outcomes. So my advice would actually be to delete your LinkedIn. And that might sound a bit bold. Maybe you feel that you need to be on there for job purposes or anything like that. But trust me, people worked before LinkedIn, and I think that they'll work afterwards.
Do you think so? Look, I have never done the whole LinkedIn thing. What? Explain to me the beauty of LinkedIn.
Well, that's what I'm saying. There is no beauty to it. It's a nightmare. It's a monstrous edifice. It's basically, I mean, given that it is supposed to be somewhere where people can sort of tout for business and they can upload their CVs and people can search for people who might be well suited to their business or different needs that they might have. It's supposed to make all of that easier. I've never really found it particularly engaging or that it's made anything easier. If anything, I just find that my inbox, when I had it, was just sort of full of spam for things that were completely unrelated to me. Obviously, maybe there is an ecosystem of people for whom this does work. Maybe this just isn't aimed at people like you and me. But I do sort of feel that the slight gamifying of that world, of sort of the job-seeking industry and the way that everybody sort of positions themselves, because this example that's being given, this is about signaling to other people on the platform that you fulfill certain criteria, that you are, within this context, a good person for certain things, and you can provide certain values. And you think, once upon a time, people used to go to the pub, and they used to talk like people, and you might get a job that way, or you might not, continue some sort of interaction with somebody on that basis. But people used to have physical interactions, personal conversations. I think things worked really well that way. I'm not saying go and get drunk, not very drunk, but go outside, talk to people, get off the screens. It's the same as for every other social media platform. Your life is not being tangibly improved by interacting with people who might as well not exist because they talk in these strange globule sound bites.
Do you know what's interesting is apparently people now use LinkedIn as a dating site.
The demographic crisis, right there, in a nutshell. If that is how you're trying to procreate, you're trying to find people based on B2B, business-to-business outcomes, then I don't think you deserve happiness or love, frankly. I think you should let go. I think it's over.
But maybe, maybe you want a bit of B2B with
Maybe somebody else does.
An alpha female.
I don't want to, oh, good Lord. If somebody wants an alpha female to give them some B2B, that's fine. There are other apps for that, far more sort of to the point. But, who am I to judge? Each to their own. It sounds nightmarish to me. And as long as it's someone else's nightmare, I don't mind.
Has anybody ever slid into your LinkedIn DMs?
LinkedIn? No. Oh, well, they might have done. I haven't checked. I haven't checked and all. I gave up on that. Maybe I should check this. Maybe I've been missing out. Maybe it's just paragraph after paragraph of people. No, actually, I won't finish that thought. What it is that they want to do, but maybe I will check it out after we're done.
It could be. It could be. If are you single?
I am. Yes. It's a state that many of us are in. It turns out, because none of us are having children, so I assume most people are in this sort of situation. Doesn't make me feel particularly bad.
No, it doesn't, and nor should it make you feel bad. I'm just saying, maybe have you done the dating apps?
I've done the dating apps a long time ago. I don't know if this is coming through. I'm not a big fan of these sorts of technological improvisations that are supposed to replace human interactions. So you can have good interactions with people via a screen, but you can also do it in person. And the funny thing is, I know a lot of men in particular are terrified about the idea of approaching women, talking to women. They don't all want to bite your head off. Actually, a lot of people appreciate being spoken to.
In fact, some people like that.
Yeah, it's quite
getting their head bitten off.
Sometimes, well, yes. Again, LinkedIn might be the place. But I feel that it's a real tragedy that people don't actually interact in person. I understand, atomization, COVID, everybody's online, nobody's asked to go into the office anymore. It's very easy to fall into the trap of not talking to people, not interacting with people. But that is kind of on you. You need to go out and you need to do it for yourself. Nobody's going to come and do it for you.
No, that's true. Look, it's a tough world out there. I think it's hard. Like, young women complain that nobody is approaching them. Young men are scared of approaching them because they're worried about Me Too.
It's a tragedy. And again, it's the illusion that I do think a lot of these apps also sort of instilled. They gave the idea of sort of a carousel of people on tap that you can have at any time. But it just took people further away from each other. And as you say, when you sprinkle that with a little bit of hysteria about allegations, you have a couple of people who have behaved very badly, then you have a lot of people who have behaved not as badly, but still probably shouldn't have behaved like that. And then we move on to the, you looked at me a bit funny, so now I'm going to take your job. You can understand, I think, why a lot of people are like, yeah, do you know what? Human interaction, this isn't for me.
No, it's true. And it's sad because it's kind of the spice of life. I mean, LinkedIn is great. You're a big fan. But it's not everything, is it?
No, it's not. There is more to life than LinkedIn. Strange as it may be to hear, but it's true.
So what should this individual do?
As I say, get off LinkedIn. I think if you were being a sort of a good Samaritan, reach out to this individual and say, this isn't how people talk, right? There are a lot of people who might respond positively to this, but at the same time, you could be doing them a favor by going, are you all right? Is everything all right at home? Because you seem to be speaking. Is this sort of like a distress signal that you're sending up? Get in touch with people, ask them to go to the pub, talk to them in person. Don't do everything online.
I completely agree with you. And the one thing that I really hate is, and I know this is a hack comment because nobody likes it, but it's just so terrible, is that kind of office corporate speak? Yeah.
Yes, I'm aware. The HRification of conversation.
Oh, it's it's the worst.
I think I read somewhere that something like a fifth of all female American college graduates by the middle of this century will end up either working or having worked in an HR department. On the current trajectory of how much these HR departments are growing and how that is the only growth industry. And you do just think, how nightmarish is that? You're basically making people rack up tens of thousands of, I was about to say pounds, dollars in that case, of debt to basically become school moms and police people's language and circle back to things. And I don't think anybody ever really has a very positive interaction with HR. I mean, please correct me if I'm wrong about that. But you never get the email from HR and think, oh, goody. This is, I'd like you to come in and talk to me about something. It's just a chat. And you think, is it? Right. And almost always, when you've told a joke, and HR comes and asks you to explain why the joke is funny, and you think, I might as well start looking for a new job on LinkedIn. And that's when life comes to an end.
Look, I agree with you. Just simple, good, honest banter, such as, since you're down there, love.
It always goes down so well. I don't understand. What was the problem with that? It's a statement of fact.
It's political correctness gone mad. That's what it is.
Woke mob.
It's a woke mob.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. We've sorted that one. I think you smashed that one actually, Benedict. Let's see. Let's try maybe one with a smidgen more challenge in it. So this is what Jackie's brought up. Right. Let's talk about grooming. Not that kind. The proper kind. If you want to tidy things up downstairs without looking like you've lost a fight with a hedge trimmer, the new Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra in the white hot edition is the tool for the job. It's got skin-safe technology, dual blades, and even a light, because shaving your crown jewels in the dark is a terrible idea. Trust me, I've done it. Ooh, not good. It's waterproof too, so I can sort myself out in the shower and pretend I've got my life together. Of course I have. Look at me. Plus, the white and gold design, very slick. Looks like it belongs in James Bond's toiletry bag. There's a reason we've been working with Manscaped for 3 years now. Because they pay us. Of course they do. They're reliable like that. No, because they're the best. The quality of their products and customer service standards are second to none. Go to manscaped.com and use code TRIGGER15 for 15% off your entire order. That's TRIGGER15 at manscaped.com. Trim like a gent, look like you meant it. Doesn't even rhyme. Dear Francis, the corner shop near me has just gone cashless and it's completely thrown my dad. He keeps trying to pay with £10 notes and gets flustered when they say no. He stopped going altogether. Do I complain or accept it's a direction of travel?
Has your father considered theft? Just, I think that if you want to talk about the direction of travel, well, we are now in a country that police do not answer the phone, let alone turn up, unless the value of goods under a certain amount has been stolen. So if we're talking about, I assume, items less than £10, at this point, I think it's almost worth trying your luck. And especially if your father is an older gentleman, maybe it'll bring a bit of spice to his life. You know, a little bit of excitement that you wouldn't otherwise have got. Obviously, I'm not advocating breaking the law. But for you to break the law, I would assume at some point the police would have to turn up. And they're not doing that. So all the evidence suggests this is fine.
Exactly. I mean, in the end, he could be like Raffles the gentleman thief.
Absolutely. Dressed like this, nobody's going to stop you. Nobody's actually going to believe that you've stolen a Yorkie bar if you look like a used car salesman. Good Lord.
Do you know? I'm glad you brought up Yorkie bars. I used to love a Yorkie bar, Benedict. Yorkie raisin and biscuit was the pinnacle of chocolate bars when I was young. I bought one the other day. Disgusting. What happened to Yorkies?
I don't know. There's also the thing, of course, where it gets smaller, and you're not sure if that's because you're growing or because it's shrinking, and you suspect it's the latter. But yeah, the taste is not what it was. And this is not just the case for chocolate bars, although it seems to be the case for every chocolate bar.
Yeah.
Did you ever have those San Pellegrinos?
Oh, I used to love them. Yeah. The limonators and all the rest of it. Yeah.
And then they changed the recipe to comply with new rules about sugar, and now these things are undrinkable, actually undrinkable. And you just think, why must there be the constant clampdown on any sort of sense of enjoyment? If you buy a Yorkie bar, you're not being conned into thinking that it's healthy. If you're buying a fizzy drink, nobody actually thinks this is good for me. Everybody knows that this is a treat, that this is a source of sugar, that this is a source of pleasure. You don't need people saying, you can't put this ingredient in, you got to make it smaller, you got to put warning, labels and everything to say, whoa, this thing is bad for you. People are not stupid. And yet, here we are, where everything is just getting ever so slightly worse every year. To what end? I don't really know, especially seeing as it doesn't appear to be affecting obesity rates or cancer rates. These things seem to keep going up regardless of these little infringements on our rights and our happiness. But yeah, no, Yorkie bars, I agree. I used to buy about 3 or 4 in one go when I was about 15 and my metabolism could, digest engine oil, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I used to love them. I used to always have a Yorkie on the way back from football. They were beautiful. Raisin and biscuit. It was a combination of the slight saltiness of the biscuit mixed in with the sweetness of the raisin and then the hardness of the chocolate.
And you didn't quite get, sometimes if you had a Snickers or a Mars, you get that little bit too chewy.
Yeah.
You weren't quite, okay, it hits the spot sometimes, but very rarely go wrong with the York bar. It was always the right consistency of whatever it was that you wanted. Did you ever have the honeycomb?
Yeah, honeycomb was great.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa.
And then it also had brilliant branding, not for girls.
Exactly. Nobody stuck to it. As it turns out, half the people that were buying it were trans.
It was a product of a beautiful and bygone era.
I do miss those days. The good old days. The perpetual good old days. There will never have been a time when the old days weren't good.
Yeah.
Even these ones, I'm sorry to say, at some point we will all look back and go, oh, I do miss those. I do miss Keir Starmer. I do miss Boris Johnson. It'll happen. Trust me, it'll happen.
Do you know what? I do think, because we're right on the cusp of AI coming and just decimating everything. So this could be seen as the last of the time where you could go out and get a taxi job and earn all right money.
It'll be, I'll tell you what, in 20, 30 years, it'll be the robot lighting up a cigarette and going, do you know what I miss? When I didn't have to do all this, when I had people to do this for me. Yeah, this is a nightmare. But it's true. Once upon a time, we all thought that George W. Bush was the worst human being on earth, and now we all look back on him slightly fondly and go, well, that wasn't so bad. Iraq, that wasn't the end of the world. It's nowhere near as bad as it is now. It's what happens. It's always what happens, and we just seem to keep getting slowly worse. The promise of AI, of course, is that it's going to make things better, that it's going to streamline everything. You won't have to do anything. It never ends up that way.
No, it's just, it will, because this is my problem with technology in the future. It's always shit. You were promised that this is 2025. You were thinking to yourself, Back to the Future. You were thinking to yourself, we're going to be in this crazy, incredible, futuristic landscape where everything will be done at your whim. World will be better, lighter, flying cars. It's not. It's just some fat cunt on a scooter.
I mean, it is literally everything that you could possibly have imagined has been taken by someone who hates you, basically. I mean, when everybody thought that, drone technology was going to come in and it was going to be about deliveries and all that sort of thing, and it turns out they're just trying to bomb you. That's basically what a drone is for. But I mean, even when it comes to the autonomous car, which is a thing now,
I've been in one.
They're fantastic. But we're quibbling in this country over whether or not you're allowed to get in one having had a drink. And you think, what was the point of that? What actually was this fantastic thing that could have, amongst other things, saved the rural British pub? Because suddenly all of those former coaching inns that have all had to close because nobody can drink and drive would have gone fantastic. People will be able to come to the pub. And the government goes, haha, that's where you're wrong, buddy. You're going to have to be a derelict shell in the middle of nowhere because we're not going to let drunk people get into this vehicle that literally does the job for them. I mean, that's very typically British, isn't it?
Why is that? Is it because have you been in one?
I've not been in one, though. I've seen, and I know people who have been in them. As of yet, they've not reached Norfolk. So, obviously, not so autonomous. They can't go out that far.
Jackie, did you go in one in Texas? Yeah, so they're all over. So we when we with Trig, we go and we do a lot of interviews in Austin, Texas. And in Austin, Texas, they have Jaguar Waymos. They are literally self-driving cars, and they're with Uber. So you just go into Uber, you just put in your direction, and it will take you there. And the only reason why I think they would say you can't get in it when you're drunk, although I don't think it's a stupid rule, is because it's got a steering wheel, so it steers like that. And you're actually told not to touch the steering wheel.
I'm sorry. Fair enough. All of a sudden, I'm just imagining myself when drunk, all my friends when we're drunk, everybody I've ever known who's ever been drunk and thinking, yeah, if I'm that plastered and I get in a car, I'm going to try and play with that steering wheel.
Yeah.
We're all, maybe you pick a fight with the voice on the intercom or something like that. Maybe it is right that British people shouldn't be allowed self-driving cars. Maybe it's different for Americans. They're not quite as rowdy, quite as curious, as inquisitive as the average drunk Brit. Maybe that's what it is.
You know what it is? I'm from South London, and I just know that there'll be at least 3 people who try and do cocaine off the steering wheel whilst it moves.
They do that whilst they're having to drive manually, don't they?
Yeah, they do, but at least you're in control of the car.
Exactly. If anything, it helps.
Yeah,
Helps with the focus.
Yeah, it does. So, what should he do?
I shouldn't, in fact, advocate shoplifting. I shouldn't do that. But I do think it's very sad that we're heading in this direction where everything is cashless. If it's possible to find somewhere else that will take cash, use that. Because I think, without meaning to get sort of very dry and very sort of serious about this, it does concern me, not so much the issue of control, but what happens if the system goes down? What happens if there is a major cyber attack or, I don't know, a Carrington event or something like that, and everybody's sort of sat there with their credit card going, well, if this doesn't work, what am I going to do? I think you need to push back against this, and you should talk to other people in the area as well, because a business is going to respond to the desires of the customers. If enough people say, I'm only going to do this in cash, trust me, sooner or later that business will start dealing in cash. And it actually helps them because, of course, they have to pay a fee to the card, to the contactless company. Vote with your feet. Do business with people who accept cash. Because otherwise, if you're just passive, this is what will happen.
Agreed. And also, if you work in cash, no tax.
I mean, well, sorry, who said that? Oh, dear.
Dear Francis, I donated to a food bank and posted about it. Felt noble for 5 minutes, then disgusted with myself. Can charity still be real if it's visible?
I think you should be disgusted with yourself. I think you should go to that food bank and take your food back. I think you should absolutely not allow this to be distributed. It's dirty goods. It's blood food. That's what it is. You shouldn't have it. No, I think it's despicable, and I think there should be a lot less of this sort of thing going on.
There should be a lot less of donating food.
Absolutely.
Do you know, it does piss me off, the virtue signal. You know what I mean?
I know. It's... Once upon a time, I think charity used to be a lot more deeply ingrained in this country. And I don't think it's because people are becoming meaner, necessarily. I do think, actually, a lot of people, broadly, are becoming poorer. I think that their margins are being squeezed, and I think people don't donate as much as they used to because they actually can't. And I think that's a rather sad state of affairs. This country, to go back to the thing about the autonomous cars, there's a reason that we don't produce these sorts of things en masse. We're not the country driving the technological achievements. We're not as rich a country as we once were. And even though we're sort of told by everybody, well, you are a first world country and you should be paying for everyone else and giving all this aid away and paying for all these sort of charitable causes, I don't think that's the reality anymore. And I think people are beginning to feel that. But I think on top of that, when you then have the pressure of, as you say, the virtue signaling, and it's not just people saying, I'm a good person. You also get it with these social media grifters and influencers about lifestyle, about how you should be hustling, how you should be behaving to get yourself this kind of life. I think it's an incredibly toxic, and I don't use that way because people like to overuse the word toxic, but it grinds people down. And again, not saying that it's causing a mental health crisis in this country or anything like that, but there is that sense of I'm not as good a person as XYZ number of other people because I'm not able to do this. And I think it's very demoralizing. And, I know I can be quite morose, I can be quite cynical, but there needs to be limits on actually how downtrodden everybody's allowed to feel, because otherwise it becomes a self-fulfilling cycle. So it's a good thing to give money to a food, food to a food bank. Give money to a food bank, nobody eat it, but that's fine, you can do that. It's a good thing to do it. If you're doing it to say to other people, look, here is a food bank, maybe consider donating to it, fine. But if it is about, look at me, I'm a good person, has anybody ever seen a post like that and thought, wow, I feel better? No, I don't think they have.
No, I don't think they have. You know, the thing that really grinds my gears, to use your terminology, about the lifestyle thing is because it makes you feel that everybody's at a party that you're not invited to.
Oh, that's true, though. Everybody is at a party. So as you know, you are being left out. That is true. No, I know what you mean. And again, you get that from very young, because inevitably, you are ostracized as a child because kids like to play games, and that sense never really leaves you. And I think that social media, in that way, allows people to indulge that quite immature behavior of going, look at me, aren't I great? And everybody else goes, wow, what a tosser.
Yeah. So can charity still be real if it's visible?
Yes. Donate to the Catholic Church. Then it's very visible, but it's not you being ostentatious about it. That's what you should do. Let somebody else look like the tosser in the gilded robes in the giant cathedral. I don't know. Just if it makes you feel good on the inside, great, do it. But think about what actual benefit you're getting by posting about it. I don't think it's solving anybody's problems.
That is true. Jack, have we got one more? Okay, dear Francis, I used to think posh people were the problem. Now I work for one, and she's kind, competent, and weirdly normal. It's thrown me. Is class war just cosplaying now?
I would say that the true enemy are the middle classes, and that the working class and upper classes should band together to really stamp on those people. Those are the people that all this time have been leading us astray. I still think that class is a major problem in this country.
Yeah.
I think the idea that we've moved beyond it, and I think that is pushed a lot because we've imported a sort of a racialized politics, and this comes into the hierarchy of who is oppressed and who isn't. The idea that if you are white, you are privileged doesn't work if you juxtapose it with the English class system.
Or Middlesbrough.
So sorry for all of those people. I'm told it's an awful place, so
Yes.
I have no intention of finding out. It's honestly, I look at, for instance, the grooming gang scandal, and I always think the first thing that comes to my mind is, look, if these were middle class girls, this would never have happened. If they were ethnic minority girls from another ethnic background, this would never have happened.
I mean, in slight pushback, there were some Sikh girls who were involved in it.
That's true. It is, but I'm afraid, we're getting into the other thing, which is the ethno-religious aspect to all of multiculturalism, which we've been told for a very long time. Oh, it's fine. Everybody will just live in happiness alongside each other, just like they did in Galicia or the Balkans. This just magically works out really well.
I mean, it didn't work out in the Balkans.
Exactly, it didn't. And it didn't work out in Eastern Europe either. That's sort of the point, is that you can say, oh, everybody's really happy and they're all getting along. But if you don't actually have a form of the American melting pot idea, if you don't actually make people melt a little bit, then actually it's not going to work.
Yeah.
But that's that ethnic aspect to it. There is the class aspect to it, which is not so much who the perpetrators were targeting. That was very much, I think, based on ethnicity. It's the reaction from the majority. As I say, I don't think most police officers or social workers would have been allowed, frankly, to turn a blind eye to a lot of what happened if these had been middle or upper class girls. It was about working class, and they were therefore seen as expendable. I think people as individuals can be very nice. And actually, I think people from across class boundaries they do actually get on very well. It's a question of how genuine you are. But I don't think for a second that we should pretend that class war, if you like to call it, has disappeared. I think that there are still very much the downtrodden, and I think you can see that in the responses, for instance, to the performance of the Reform Party from the London media circuit, which is disgust.
Yeah, absolutely. It is disgust. I mean, and it's also underneath disgust, fear.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they worried that the peasants are revolting.
Yeah, it's and this is a very old story in this country. We've never got over it. For a very long time, the Industrial Revolution and the wealth that was generated by that allowed us to paper over the cracks. The post-war myths and the post-imperial decline and about sense of Britishness, again, papered over it. These things have never gone away, and I think deindustrialization threw that into stark relief. Mass migration has thrown that into stark relief, and now you have political parties fighting over the scraps and saying, on the one hand, these things that the working class care about, they're very important to us, but how dare they raise these things in the first place? Brexit, immigration, how dare they actually bring this to our attention so that we have to deal with them now?
Yeah, it's a good point. It is a good point. So is class war just cosplaying now? It's an interesting point. I think class is still a huge problem in this country. What to do about it, I don't really know. But one of the things I think is going to be very interesting is I think it's going to become less and less important the more we have legal and illegal immigration.
I think the best route out of it is a very aggressive meritocracy. Meritocracy is an incredibly difficult thing to enforce because once people are at the top, regardless of what background they come from, they use the advantages that being at the top gives them to close ranks so that those who are related to them, their children, for instance, who perhaps do not deserve to be at the top, don't have to fall quite so far. That's always how meritocracies fail. I do think, I don't want to sound all Peter Hitchens on this, but I do think that there was an element of social mobility when we had a grammar school system that allowed working class boys and girls to actually get ahead, and when top universities did not require people to get into colossal amounts of debt. I think that was a much fairer system than we have now. I do think that that would be one way out of it, but we don't seem to want to go in that direction is the key thing. And I'd argue voters on both sides of the divide, right and left, seem particularly averse to that sort of meritocracy because they fear that it'll actually upset their status in the hierarchy. So I am less optimistic that this is going to become less and less of a problem. I think actually, as you say, migration is just making it worse.
Yeah, and that's why I think why people love sport, because sport really is one of the only true meritocracies. Doesn't matter who your dad is, what the colour of your skin. Once you get on the pitch,
it helps if you're owned by a sheikh, but yes, everything is very diverse, very fair. As long as you are bought by a petrostate or an oligarch, then it's a fantastic thing. No, but I do agree. That is the great leveler, actually, is that you cannot, as much as people really have tried in this country, you cannot ignore physical, biological differences between people and what people are good and bad at in that sense. You can discriminate in all sorts of other ways, but when it comes down to it, if you need a quick guy on the wing, you need a quick guy on the wing. And actually just saying, you can be that guy if you want, it doesn't really bear out.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. We got time for one more, Jackie?
Yeah, I can squeeze one more.
Let's squeeze one in and then that'll be it. Dear Francis, my neighbours have started putting their bins out in front of our house because theirs is too far a walk. They say it makes no difference, but I have to look at them every morning. Is this worth a confrontation?
Yes, bin fights are always worth a confrontation. Set fire to the bin, wheel it back towards their house, let's see things actually kick off. I think this is a potential for high-octane entertainment, an assertion of dominance over your neighbourhood. I think it's very important that people become very aggressive and fastidious about their bins, especially seeing as the bins might not be collected for a couple of weeks anyway. So, setting fire to it would deal with that rubbish issue. I mean, it sounds a little bit petty, but it is one of those little things that does annoy people, doesn't it? That's sort of the encroachment. The other thing, of course, is parking spaces. If you're allowed one parking space and it's sort of outside your house and somebody else comes and parks on it, so you have to put your car somewhere else. These little things, they can really get to you. And it's not very neighbourly, is it? It doesn't really foment high trust.
No, but you were talking about bin wars. The entrepreneur in me was like, just video it and put it on YouTube. Get 1 million views.
Oh, Britain has gone from robot wars to bin wars.
Bin wars.
That's, $1 million idea. Could be the thing that really takes off. The next great sporting export from the UK after football, cricket, rugby, bin wars. Yes.
Nothing sums up the decline of this country like bin wars. And with that, Benedict, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for coming on the show. If people want to find you online, where is the best place to do it and your work?
Twitter is the best place, and you'll find a lot of my best work there in the form of 180 characters. Doing general journalism, appearing on various platforms. My Twitter handle is just my name, Benedict Spence. Nice and straightforward.
Perfect. Thank you very much for coming on the show, Benedict. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Make sure to like, subscribe, tell a friend about it. Give us a review, leave a comment, push us up the algorithm, and if you didn't like it, shut your face. See you next week. Bye-bye.